Well, in a pivotal moment for gender inclusion in Nigeria, the 10th National Assembly revisits 5 critical gender bills that failed to pass in the 9th Assembly. Rights correspondent Somi Madrogo reports.
It's a gathering of lawmakers, constitutional experts, and other stakeholders canvassing gender inclusion. The objective of this meeting in Abuja is to fine-tune the previous gender bills that failed to pass at the 9th Assembly for a fresh presentation at the 10th National Assembly. Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, who is the chair of the Constitution Review Committee, is urging lawmakers to support the gender bills, a step that he says will significantly shape the country's political landscape.
Our gathering today serves as a reaffirmation of our collective dedication to advancing women's political representation and inclusion, a priority that aligns deeply with the legislative agenda, the House of Representatives, and the pursuit of a fairer, more inclusive Nigeria.
I've been inspired by Nigerian women, even in the United Nations, where we have Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General, Okonjo-Iweala, head of WTO, Ahunez Yakonwa, head of UNDP Africa. How is it possible that we are not able to make a dent?
With Nigeria's female representation currently standing at just 4.7% in the House of Representatives and a mere 2% in the Senate, stakeholders insist it's time for Nigeria to break its long-standing biases and align with global standards. In furtherance of these discussions, a commitment was signed by the First Lady of Kwara State, witnessed by the Deputy Speaker of the House, to ensure constitutional amendments that empower women. Stakeholders are convening to address a pressing issue, the persistent lack of representation of Nigerian women in politics. With every electoral cycle, the number of females in the legislature continues to decline, underpinning an urgent need for action. This is a call to the 10th National Assembly to correct the oversights of previous parliaments for a more equitable and progressive society. Implementing affirmative action and enforcing gender quotas are some of the steps that are imperative for creating this change. But beyond policy, there is a need to cultivate a political environment that values women and empowers women to lead. This is about creating a Nigerian legislature that truly reflects the diverse fabric of our society. As both chambers of the National Assembly resume plans to further review the 1999 Constitution, there is a renewed call on lawmakers to back the gender bills when they are presented, so as to help advance a more equitable future for women in Nigeria. Somi Madrogo, Arise News.
All right, now we have Arise News correspondent with us, Somi Madrogo. Somi, good morning and thanks for being here with us bright and early. Now, this dialogue aims to address the significant underrepresentation that we've been seeing in Nigerian politics and in Nigeria as a whole. From your perspective, from covering this event, what are some of the hindrances that always stops this or hinders women's political participation despite multiple attempts at legislative reforms?
Good morning, Nkechi. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. I will say the event did not really touch on the hindrances, but just from my study of, the lack of women in Nigerian politics and leadership in general, I will say traditional norms. And then despite the fact that these bills had been presented, you could see that there was a pushback. And then in politics, we would also talk about structures. So in a structure, it's loyalty flowing up and then resources flowing down, and appointments and coronations, as many would refer to our elections these days. So women are not necessarily part of this political process because the political process in Nigeria is very cumbersome. It's very difficult and expensive. So I'll say the bills are not necessarily tokenism, but they're imperative to change these traditional circumstances that we see.
You make a very valid point, Somi, but I wanted to ask you, given previous dialogues such as this and national policies like the affirmative action that we have in Nigeria, we have not seen much of a difference. Did you get a sense from yesterday's dialogue that it will be different this time around, or it's another talk shop, Somi?
Absolutely. Adesua, as you know, there are lots and lots of talk shops, but I'm hopeful. The Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives did seem very passionate about the topic, and I see lots of House of Representative members and senators seeming to want a more progressive and equitable Nigeria. It says that they say that it's part of the renewed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's scheme, and so I'm hopeful that the bills will pass, maybe not all, but at least 3 out of the 5 should pass.
4 women in the Senate, 16 in, I think, House of Reps is 360. Well, that's appalling, and that's heavily lopsided. You talked about, I heard you talk about pushback. Do you think this is just talk, jaw, and who is pushing who back?
I will say that because, you know, in politics, there are structures in place. There are people, you know, at least 10 people in line waiting for their, in quote, day of coronation. And many women are not part of that process. However, with the increased awareness that there needs to be more women participating in politics and leadership in general, I believe that, you know, there's only so much that Nigeria can do to resist this. We don't rank anywhere in African legislatures because we don't even have up to 5% of representation of women in our legislature. In 1999, we had 12 women. Today, we have 16. In the House of Representatives, in 1999, we had 3 women, and today we have 4. That is not indicative of a progressive society whatsoever. And so I believe it's time that we put aside these gender biases and do what needs to be done to align with global standards.
2 things, Somi. 1, what were some of the outcomes during that dialogue? And 2, I noticed there was support from traditional and faith leaders that was emphasized during that consensus on women's political inclusion. How did these groups respond during that dialogue, and what role were they expected to play?
So I say from just my corner in the room, it was really interesting to see the men, the leaders, really recognizing the roles that their wives play. For example, the governor of Kwara State, his wife was a very, very pivotal member of this event. There was a commitment that she signed, which was witnessed by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, that they would be making more constitutional amendments that empower women. And so for me, that was a very pivotal moment of the event. It definitely showed that there was some commitment, and just the role that she played and the reverence that was given to her, I think, is a sign that we're going in the right direction. Hopefully, it wasn't all talk like you guys are saying. And then as far as the religious leaders go, it's important that, you know, I was talking just about traditional norms, and then in Nigeria, traditional norms and religious norms kind of intertwine. And so because of that, it's important that they play a role in reshaping these narratives.
Well, it's been done elsewhere in the world. Certainly Nigeria can do it as well. Somi Madugu, thank you so much for your analysis and coverage of that important event. And we want to be optimistic as you are. Thank you, Somi. Have a great day.